Okay, we're recording.
Hopefully.
Hi, I'm Larry, and I'll tell you a little bit about my dad. Before I was born, my uncle and my grandfather were executed. And my father was in the Russian army as an officer. I'm not sure the rank, but he was an officer. And he found out that the KGB were looking for him to kill him because he was associated to my grandfather and uncle, and they didn't want to have any connection of anybody looking back and haunting them. So they wanted to execute him. And I don't know what was going on. I was not born yet. In 1943, I was born, and my dad came home and said, "We're getting out of here." Of course, I know nothing because I'm not even a year old. And they got a family together. There were 4 of us at that time. My older sister, my brother, and my other sister right after me, and then myself. And we got together. They took me and going on a train. He used his rank to get through the enemy lines. And, of course, being an officer in Russia, you don't dare question an officer above you for anything. You do what you're told, and as long as we didn't run into anybody that was higher ranked than him, we were safe. And we got through the lines, got off the train, went into Poland, and my dad spoke quite a few languages. And so he told all of us to keep quiet because he knew that he was being followed. And with not knowing who and where and how, we just kept going from town to town, and he would hear a door and a knock on the door. He would stop, and all of us would just be quiet, like we didn't know what's going on. And he would use a language that's not Russian. And they couldn't communicate with the people at the door, so they let him go. And that's how we got through Poland into Germany. Now, before all this, my dad being in the Russian army, we were talking one day, and he said, we were fighting the Germans, and the whole unit got wiped out, but 3 of us. And it was pouring rain. So myself and the other 2 guys, soldiers, are walking on the bridge, and coming opposite us, a whole German division. Where it was pouring rain, so we just put our heads down, and we kept walking, got to the other side of the bridge, and went under the bridge, and just sat there. So nobody could touch us, till the whole German unit went by. It was pouring so bad that the Germans never bothered to look who it was crossing on the bridge, and then we just swam into another area, and we're safe. We were starving and hot, and no food for a long time, so we just rats, mice, whatever we could kill, we grabbed and ate, because that was the only way to survive. So, and he said it was rough. I didn't know much. I was just born and a little kid getting out, and we get into Germany. My father's parents were German, so he went to Berlin and got papers that were all German citizens, and that allowed him to go through Germany. We were on the American side, not the German side, and we never stayed in any city more than a couple months. We kept on the move because we didn't know who was following you. Just kept going. I don't know any of that because I was too little. Finally, we get to a city called Friele, and I was 5 years old there, and I started to remember things from that age on. I don't know what my dad did for work because it was right after the war. It's a big mess. But I do know, going from different cities, I can name them all, but there's no point. And I started to get older. When I became 7 years old, we started to play around with friends in our cities. And we'd go behind buildings and play. we'd find bullets and shells and everything found in the ground. We took them out playing with them. We didn't know anything better as kids. Well, in this city, to have food, you had to go in line, stand in a long line. I remember my father getting there, and I would go with him. Just stand there from morning till night till your turn came. And you got a piece of bread and a piece of butter, and that was it for your day. Standing the whole day. The next day you had to go in line again, each day to get food. That was tough. You know, for a kid little like me, it was really hard. Well, we went from city to city, and I don't know how in the world my mom communicated with her sister, whose husband was a doctor that was shot. She somehow wound up in the States, and through her, she made papers for us to come to the U.S. When we get to Bremen, my grandmother had to stay in Germany, but the rest of us were able to get papers to come to the States. We get on a ship, and we start going to America. I was 8.5 at that time. My older sister, the sailors liked a lot. She made it real nice for me to get around because I was able to go places nobody else could, or that at least that I knew nobody else could. And she did friends with quite a few of them. And several days before we came to the United States, the ship we were on was a U.S. battleship coming back for repairs. And it sprung a leak someplace in the basement. I don't know where, but somewhere down there. And at that day, the storm was on real powerful. They chained all the doors outside because the weights were above the ship, really big. And you hear that captain saying that he needs help for men to come down and help repair this hole. So my dad and some other people went down to this place, and everybody had life jackets on, and water's filling in the ship. And we're all running to the top, yelling, screaming. Can't help it. You can't get out because it's chained. You can't go down because it's water. About halfway through the day, you hear the captain say, "We fixed the leak. Thank you, men, for helping us." In English, I didn't understand much English, but that's what we were told. They told us. And so they said, just wait and be patient till the water recedes, and we'll dump it all out, and it will be back to normal. It took quite a while to empty the ship. The storm died down, stopped. They opened up the door, but everybody was walking around with bags, throwing out because we didn't have a choice. It was just really bad. And so a couple of days later, we come into the New York Harbor, and the first thing we see is Statue of Liberty, early in the morning. And there were these huge, what we thought were lightning bugs. They were humongous, flashing the whole time. Well, this was early in the morning, and everything was dark. We said, my goodness, they really have huge lightning bugs in America, because in Germany at that time, nobody had vehicles except the military. We had bicycles, that's it, wagons, horses. And we didn't know when we came out of the ship and into the port, wherever we went, and my aunt, the one who made papers for us to come here, met us with her husband. We get on a highway and we see all these lights going by in cars, and then we realized it was lights of cars, not lightning bugs. But we didn't know that until we actually saw the cars, and we were shocked because we never saw all these cars. Here you see all these cars. And so we go to Linden, New Jersey. I don't know what my dad did because I don't know what kind of work he could do because he couldn't do much. He was a bookkeeper and nobody hired him for that. And somehow my dad, within like a half a year or 3/4 of a year, found a house in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And he bought it, I guess with help, and moved us there. We lived there, and while we were there, we went to a church in Newark, which is half hour away by car. And my dad got a car and going to there, a man used to do the building of homes. And so they talked to my dad and he said, would you like to help us? We'll pay you. And so my dad, took on a job and that's what he was doing. And we had no food, not much. So he would come home. On Saturdays, they used to have markets on the street, trucks with food, different kind of food. We would wait until they all left, and then we would go on the streets and pick up whatever we could find to take to the house to eat. And that's how we survived for many years, doing it that way. Then I got older, and because in my case I couldn't speak English, my dad was doing the house building. Every summer he would ask us to help him. We went to help him, but we played more than helping in the woods and all. But we learned a lot, at least I did. And because I was a person who didn't know English, they put me in the first grade when I was 9 years old. So to catch up to my grade level, they kept skipping me grades. And I was doing real fine until I got into 7th grade. And they put me Algebra 1. In the middle of the year, they decided to move me in 8th grade, Algebra 2. I was lost. So today I'm still lost. I was no X to figure that out. Now, my older brother learned a lot from my dad in building. And he did other things before that, but later on he became a builder. And my youngest brother learned from my dad a lot of stuff, and he became a builder. Yeah. My oldest brother's name is Victor, and my youngest brother is Walter. I had other brothers that did some construction, but that came along a little later. And my oldest brother says to my dad, you got to send him to college, meaning me. At that time, college was so unimportant, there's no point for it. So when we get to high school, I didn't really study. I just wanted to get out of school and get a job on the side, work in a store or someplace to get by. That's how it was in those days. I'm talking about in 1959, 1960. And Vic says, my brother Victor says to Dad, you got to send him to college. My father pulls me over to the side and says, you're going to college. I did not want to go. But he says, you're going to college. And so I went. I wanted to apply everywhere to enter college, and nobody would take me because my grades were not very good, because I didn't care. Well, my older sister got married in 1958, and they moved to Maryland. Her husband was a pastor, and being there, they moved there, and I'm going someplace to college. Well, he finished college in 2 years with I think it was a cum laude, which is pretty high. And we go to his graduation, and he introduces me to the dean of the school. And we're talking with the dean, and he says, have you thought about college? I said, nobody wants me. I explained to him why, because I didn't do much and I didn't understand much. He says, send me an application off to Jerry. So I sent him an application. I got a letter back. He accepted. I was happy. My dad was happy. And, of course, I thank my brother-in-law, because if not for him, I never would have been. I never thought college would be important. A lot of things happen in college that professors really helped me get by that I probably wouldn't have if not for them. I'd still have been maybe now in college trying to get out, because math was not a thing with me at all. And anyway, one of the professors says to me, don't worry about it. We know where you're going. Of course, when I was in college, I was in band. And the orchestra director, band director, would always ask me to fill in for him whenever he was absent. I didn't know why. He just asked me to fill in. And so I filled in. Well, I used to play solos in chapel and things like this. And when he said, I know where you're going, I didn't understand what he meant, but he knew what he meant. And my major in college was psychology. My minor was music. I will right now. And, because it's leaving me there. And my senior semester, second semester, in my senior year, my guidance counselor walks up to me and says, you should teach school. And I'm thinking in my head, what do you know? I'm a psychology major. But he said nothing else to me to think about it and left. Well, my mornings were all free that particular time. In college, you don't go 8 to 12 to 4. In school, you could. My mornings were all free. And so I said, it's good on my record, an extra thing. So I signed up for student teaching. I applied, met the lady, and she says to me, okay, good. Class is coming, you take over, I'm leaving. A lot of things happened there, but I'm not going to get into that because that's not what this is all about. Anyway, then I changed my major into my minor, psychology, and my minor, music, into my major. Came to Maryland, applied, became a teacher, and taught all my life. It was really, really, if not for him, who knows what it would have done with psychology. But anyway, my dad was happy. And they bought a home in Joppatown. And we bought, my sister, I stayed with her, lived, bought a home in Joppatown next door. And my father, doing building a lot now. In the summers when I was off from college, I would go and help him because I was a little bit wiser and older than I was when I first came here. It was quite a knowledgeable thing for me. I learned how to use hammers and other things from him. And then later on, my older brother and my oldest brother, I did some work for him a little bit and learned some things from him. But my dad was the kind of person who went on his own in building the homes. He left this man after a while when he learned a few things and went on his own and did pretty good for him. But he was a person that was very determined and did not believe very much in the doctors because in Russia they were not very good. And so one day he gets a toe infection. And so instead of going to a doctor, he decides to operate it on himself with a knife. And it does the job. I don't know how long, but a while later, his foot went. And it was pretty bad, so he started to cut off the foot. Then later on, it became gangrene further up higher. And he started to, instead of going to a doctor, he went and cut off the next section. That part? No.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I guess I got it wrong. My apologies. Okay. Anyway, the doctors evidently did the operating, the cutting, but my father didn't like it. And then he's laying there, and a little while later, he's going to the hospital. And my younger brother was there. And then he came home. Okay. Yeah. My younger brother Leo was there, and he says, okay, I'm tired, you can go for a little while. So my mom asked if I would go. I said, okay. So I get to the hospital. This was pretty late at night.
No, they closed it from the
Okay, that I know. I go to the hospital, I'm sitting with him, and we talk, and when my dad says to me, will you make sure mom's taken care of? I said, yeah, sure, she'll be taken care of by someone. We'll take care of it. I'll make sure of that. And we talked a little bit more, and then the doctor had me go sit on the side. And then he comes to me and says, we've got a problem. You've got to decide to give him shots to prolong his life or just let him be. And I'm sitting there saying, I can't go home and try to find out from the whole family what they want. So I'm just going to make a decision. And I said, I know where he's going. Leave him as he is and cuddle together. Within a half hour from that time, my father passed away. After I came home to my mom, and we just all prayed together, and whoever was there, and then we, of course, buried my dad, and that's as much as I know of him. Thank you.